Hello and welcome to TransForm Tuesday. My name is Dave McCormick. I'm VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software. And on TransForm Tuesdays, we go over all things related to Alpha Transform. And today we will be covering TPL. We'll also be covering a subject we covered last week, just a quick correction. But before I get started, if you folks out there could just let me know whether or not you can see my screen and whether or not you can hear me. Just type that into the questions box. That would be very helpful. Once you let me know that, I can get started. Hello, can anyone hear me? I'm not seeing anything in the questions box. Oh, okay. Sarah can. Okay, excellent. Good. I know everyone was waiting for someone else to jump in, but thank you very much. All right, let's begin. Now, last week, we had covered how to split up your Alpha Transform account among multiple clients or departments in your organization. And in that example, which is available online, here's the example right here. We ran into an error, and so the form wouldn't load, and it didn't make for a great demonstration. And I just wanted to show you guys what I did wrong, so that when you're looking at it, it's better. And also, we'll make a note about that on the video itself. But the thing we did wrong was, or I did wrong, when you are assigning permissions to a particular person, besides setting the roles allowed to create the new form type, you also need to set at least one or more roles down here in the open section. So if you set those, you will avoid the error and everything should work as planned. So enough with the old business. Now let's move on to TPL. So the reason I'm doing TPL this week is very excited. I finally have able to get my hands on it. It's not just the developers, and very soon, if not this week, then certainly next week, you guys will have access to TPL as well for your own use. And so let's talk a little bit about TPL, and we're going to go through today the what, the where, and the how. Now, there was an overview video that we did, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago maybe, on TPL, and that was given by Dan Bricklin, who's our CTO. And he sort of showed you what you can do with it, and he sort of went over it at a high-level overview. But today, I'm going to give you an introduction so that you can actually dive in and start doing this stuff yourself. I'm going to give you plenty of information to be dangerous. So let's dive right in. First of all, what is TPL? TPL is a traditional programming language, but it's tuned to the needs of transform forms. And with it, you can specify the behavior of a transform form as the user fills it in. You can also respond to events such as field value changes. Now that's from the documentation. So I wanted to take that a little bit further and say you can use it to perform lookups on an onboard database. You can use it to perform AJAX callbacks to exchange data with a web service, and that could be a two-way exchange. You could use it to perform calculations. You can use it to change the CSS styles of certain elements in the interface. That one I'm not covering today, but I will cover it very shortly. You could also add buttons to the forms to perform custom actions, and that I'm actually going to show you how to do that today. So let's get started with a really simple example. And this is an example of a calculation. So I built out a transform form, and I gave it 5 fields. 2 of them are I call character fields, and 3 of them are number fields. And I didn't change the underlying names of these fields in the system. So they're still named field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, and field 5. What I wanted to do for the 2 number fields, which are fields 3 and fields 4, is whenever I make a change to either one of those fields, I wanted to add both of those fields together and put the answer in number 5. So you could think of this as, performing totals for invoices or something like that. You can do that with transform. And so to do that, we wrote just a little bit of code, and we'll begin at the beginning here, which is on changed field 3. So this tells transform, or TPL, that when I change this field, I want you to do something. The something that I want you to do is this line here, and then I end it with an end on command. So here's the something that I want to do, and that is I want to set the value of field 5, which is here, to the value of field 3 plus field 4. I also want to do the same thing if you make a change to field 4. So I wrote a second TPL statement saying on changed field 4, again, set field 5 equal to field 3, and field 4, oops, I have a typo here, and on should be all one word, and it should be on the next line. And then all I have to do is take that code, and in Alpha TransForm, if I paste that into the metadata, like I've shown you here, it will work. All you have to do after you paste that in is you scroll up, save, upload, and when you look at it on the phone, it's going to look like this. Here's a screenshot of a phone I took this morning. And here you'll see, whoops, that was the one before that. Here it is in action. 50 plus 75 equals 125. So that's a fairly simple example. So let's go just a slight bit more complex, and let's talk about doing a function. Now, a function is, a piece of reusable code. You write it once, and then you can call it multiple times. It's a real time saver. A lot of you are familiar with this concept. And in my function, I called my first function. I wanted to take, like I did before, the values of field 3 and field 4 and add them together, like I did here. But then I also want to append the text from field 1 to the end of it. So 50 plus 75 is 125, plus the text that I typed in, called text to append, has been appended here on the end. And you're probably wondering, okay, that's cool, but I don't know that syntax. Where do I find it out? Syntax is really easy to learn, and I'm going to show you the links to that in just a moment. If you notice here at the bottom, okay, so I've created this function, and like before, I just pasted into the metadata section of my form. Now, if I run this form, this text is actually not going to get appended, at first anyway, because there's nothing to actually run the function. If you recall, in the previous example, I said on change field 3, on change field 4, that told TPL when something changes, go ahead and do this. With a function, we need to tell TPL exactly when we're going to run that function. And there are two ways to do that. You can run that actually right in the debugger, which I'm going to show you first. But then the next thing I'm going to show you is how to set up a button to run your function. So let's take a look at the debugger. If you notice here, I have this little blue button which says debug, and you probably don't have that turned on, but you can turn that on, and let me show you how you do that. The debugger is activated. I kind of did these out of order, so let me just jump down to turning on and off the debugger section. When you first open, or when you're back at the list of forms section, either existing forms or add a form, there is a question mark button to get to help. If you press and hold on that, it will open the helps table of contents. And if you scroll down through the helps table of contents, you will find a section that says tools for support. You're going to want to click on that. When you click on that, it'll take you to the tools for support page in the help. And you'll want to scroll down to where it says debug button. And here you can either choose shown or you can choose hidden. So easy enough. So once you choose shown, that blue button will appear, and then you can go back. So let's go back to our example and see how we can look at our function in the debugger. So the first thing we do, of course, is click the debug button when we're on that field. And this is the screen that appears. The screen changes. And let me walk you through this. At the top, it shows you the different functions. And statements, I should say, commands. The first was the on changed field 3 and on changed field 4. We went over the code on how to do that. And then the next one was my function, my first function, the one that adds the two fields and appends field 1 to it. Ignore the thing about the button. We haven't gotten there yet. Okay, so here we are with function my first function. Let's say I want to run that function. What I would do is I'd go down here to the hamburger menu. I would click on that, and a menu pops up. And the one menu choice right now is run function. Kind of narrows it down a bit. So you'll choose run function. And when you do that, a list appears. Here's that changed field 3 and changed field 4 that we created earlier. And also here's my first function. So what I would do is I would click on that to insert the at my first function button. And also I'm going to make a quick apology. Everyone hates this sea hunt color. I know it's a distraction. We're going to change that color. I'm just pointing that out. I'm getting some comments here in the questions box. Yes, we promised to change that color. It doesn't look good. Anyway, so here we go. You click on the my first function thing, and then here at the bottom, and I think I did this in another one. Here it is. Yep. And then at the bottom here, you'll click this. Oh, I'm sorry. You'll click this one, this run function. When you click the run function, it opens up that function in the debugger, which is right here, and you'll see that it's highlighted. And now I have debugger controls. If I want to just play that function from start to finish, I hit play. But if I want to just go step by step through the function, I can use this step by step button. And as I step through and as I play, I can see what's happened to my field values here at the bottom. So it's a really great way to see what's happening where in your code and what's being changed. Excellent way to fix bugs. That's why it's the debugger. All right, so I think that I've beaten that one to death there. So let's go back in, and I'm going to now show you how to create that button that we had in the previous. I'm going to show you this button, this press me button that we're going to use to launch our function. Starting up here, I'm going to go and choose my form, TPL test form, and I'm going to say edit commands as raw JSON. Now you might be familiar with edit definition as raw JSON because that's where you can go and copy all that JSON and actually paste it into another TransForm account to duplicate that form. It's also another way of just making a backup of your form design if you want. But this time we're not going to do the entire JSON definition. We're just going to do edit commands as raw JSON. So we'll click on that button. And when I click on that button, I'm going to, oops, let me find the right section. Aha. I am going to get a window that looks like this. In here, here are the commands. Here's field 4, which I called number 2. Here's field 5, which I called number 3. Those were created for me when I inserted the fields. But what I did here is I actually inserted one more line of JSON. If you're familiar with the format, what you need to do is you just put a comma at the end of the last part of that array. You do an open curly brace like we've done here. And here's the syntax for inserting a button. You say CMD, that's the type of command, and instead of a field, it's called a button. The text, that's the text that appears on the button, and I said press me. The name of the button, you'll need that when you're referring to it in your script. I called that button 1. And then in settings, I'm allowed to do anything I want really with CSS. So I've decided to set, in this case, the color equal to red. This doesn't, it looks like there's an extra. I think that's how I do it right there. And what that will do in my form design is actually create a button which is red, like here, called Press Me. Now I'm still not done because I need to hook up that button to that function. And to do that, I just go back here into the metadata section for my form, and I say on asterisk button underscore button 1. Remember, that's the name we just called our button. Run this function at my first function and end on. And the result is when you press that button, it'll take the value from character 1. You press that button, it'll run this function which takes the value from character 1 and appends it into this last field here, field 5. All right, so those were really simple examples, but you know, I've told you about all these other cool things you could do, Ajax callbacks and lookups and things like that. So you're probably saying, okay, how do I do the real stuff, Dave? Well, we do have some examples of how to do some more real stuff, and we've created a sample documentation page and a sample app. And this is the one that if you saw Dan's presentation about a month ago, this is the one he was showing off. And he used it to scan, for example, an ISBN number off a book, and it looked at an internal database and was able to find the title, author, and the price of the book. We also had an example of an Ajax callback where we got all of the countries in a country drop-down list from a live link on the web, and that was demonstrated as well. So let me show you where you can find that example and how to get that example into your account so you can start playing with it. First of all, this is the link that you need to know. And let me grab that link right here. Oops. And I'm going to paste this into the chat window. Some versions of GoToWebinar don't have a chat window, especially if you're running the web versions. You're not going to see that link. Just send an email to tfservice, as in transform service, at alphasoftware.com. Happy to send you off that link that you need. When you go to that link, you just see this plain text, early documentation for the TransForm programming language. Now, to get that sample application that I just showed you here into your account, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click on this link, raw JSON for entire form for sample app. When you click on it, you're going to come to a page like this, and you're going to want to copy all of this JSON text here into your clipboard. Then you're going to go back to TransForm and create a new form, and you're going to paste that into the raw JSON for entire form section of the form that you create. It will actually change the name of the form for you, so there's no need to actually give it a name when you create the new one. It's going to change it to a sample form. Of course, you can change it to something else if you like. And then there it is. Oh, here, I've given you the example here of pasting it all in. Now, that's part of it. That's the form, but what's missing is the TPL code. We need to put that into the metadata for the app. And to get that TPL code, that is a different link back on that page, the sample TPL code for the sample form. This has all of the code, but it also has two other lines which you're going to want to omit. So when you click on it, it's going to look like this. You're going to select all of this, except for those two lines at the bottom. You don't need those. And you're going to paste that into the metadata section for your form. And the result is going to be that you will have that sample form that we had before, and it should work. If you want, I can get you the barcodes. Just send me an email, tfservice@alphasoftware.com. I'll give you some barcodes that will actually work with this example if you want to test it out. But really what the cool thing is about this is you can go looking through all of the code that was used to do all of these different examples so that you can work out how to do your own AJAX callbacks, how to do your own sort of simple lookups, your own calculations, and so on. So that is it for today's presentation. Let me just go here to the summary page. So to summarize, TPL is a client-side programming language that's tuned specifically for TransForm. It's event-driven, so it fires when something happens. For example, when you change a field, or when you click a button, or when you load a form for the first time. There are different events that can be fired. It can be used to perform calculations. It can do lookups. It can do AJAX callbacks. It can also, and I didn't demonstrate this, it can also be used to change the CSS styling of the entire application. I may show that in a future session. For now, TPL code is entered into the metadata section for your form. We are going to have an actual builder in TransForm Central. But for right now, just choose whatever text editor you like to write your code, and you paste it into the metadata section. One thing you might want to do with your code is to create a button. You don't do that in TPL, but you can do that by editing the JSON form commands. That's in the advanced section for your form. And the syntax for that I showed you earlier, which is here. Let me find that for you. Command button, text, whatever text you want, the name that you'll refer to in TPL, and any settings that you want for the button in terms of color or style. And then finally, all of these examples are available online, and they're available here at the link that I've pasted into the chat window for you. So I hope that this is a helpful introduction. I think we're going to have a new version of TransForm available. It should be within the next day or two. It's going to get submitted to the store. Usually it only takes about a day for them to approve our stuff once it goes up there. And it will be available both in Google Play and as well as the iTunes, the App Store for Apple. So Okay, yeah, actually, someone is pointing out that I made a typographical error, and that someone is Sarah. Thank you very much, Sarah, our documentation person who's on the line with us. Let me go and fix that so that when you copy my example, you don't break everything. What we would do here is, I didn't use the correct JSON format when I was formatting that button. It should look like this, except not with smart quotes, with regular quotes. It should be settings, colon, and then in this array, because it's JSON, the name value pairs are always in quotation marks. So the first name value pair, and actually the only name value pair here is color, and I set it to red. But of course, I could also put in a comma and just keep adding out to that array. I could make the text bold. I could change the font, anything else. So Sarah, thanks for catching that. Are there any other questions on today's topic, or are there anything else that has to do with TransForm? Go ahead and type them into the window. Otherwise, we are going to end for the day. I'll give you guys a minute. No, it doesn't look like it. All right, great. Well, you can always ask questions by sending your questions to TF, like as in TransForm, tfservice@alphasoftware.com. There's a team of us monitoring that email address, and we're happy to get back to you with answers. So from all of us here at Alpha Software, and for myself, thank you very much for attending today's Transform Tuesday. I hope you found it informative, and we hope to see you next Tuesday. Take care and goodbye.